It's Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. For all your news on politics, business, and education, it's FloridaDaily.com. Now, here's your host, Ed Dean.
Welcome to another edition of Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. I am your host, the publisher, Ed Dean. There is so much to talk about. Let's get to it. Here with us in studio, Claire Goforth is the political reporter for The Daily. Go to thedaily.com. You can also hear her on NPR radio stations throughout the state of Florida. And David Williams, a guy who is a contributor to FloridaDaily.com, but he's been on with my radio show for many, many years. He's a friend out of Washington, D.C. with the Taxpayers Advocacy Group, the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. The website's protectingtaxpayers.org. I got to talk about ACB. Usually I think of AOC, ACB, Amy Coney Barrett. I want to talk about that. The Democrats are all hypocrites on this issue, but I'll explain why. But I want to get into the debate. So let me play for you some of the clips. Here is the debate with Biden and President Trump of this past Tuesday night.
That is not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
Now, I am
and
the
they're going to dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic Party is what I, in fact.
All right, so Joe Biden's, he's the Democratic Party. I'm going to start with you, David. As bad, and I thought Trump could have scored an 8.5, maybe a 9. I probably would have, on the issues, if you just a little let Biden just kind of maybe talk his way into the quicksand out there. Having said that, I want to focus more on the Bernie Sanders. It's a little bit about spin. Is that Joe Biden says he's not for the Green New Deal. We'll get into that in a moment because his website says he is. He says, I beat the socialists. He says, he didn't really condemn Antifa or BLM, but he didn't give any fodder to Bernie Sanders out there. And also, he didn't go along with the Medicare for All. I was on Facebook trolling some of the libs out there, and they were a little bit disappointed that Biden didn't give him proper props. That's what I read. What do you think?
Well, this was fascinating because you have, the party pulling him to the left during the primary and now the general. And what he was doing, listen, he was appealing to the moderates. He was appealing to the independents. He didn't want to go full in on the Green New Deal. He didn't want to go full in on Medicare for All because he's trying to get moderates. And, I just wonder if you're a real progressive and you're watching this, what are you thinking? Are you thinking that he's going to sell us out after the election, or are you thinking just doing this to get votes? So if I were a progressive, I'd be really concerned about this rhetoric coming from him.
David's got an interesting point, and I will say this. I know some of my conservative listeners would probably, and conservative viewers would differ with me. I don't think Biden is as liberal as Hillary Clinton would have been. I think Biden's probably a little bit more moderate. Is that still concerning to some? Because I want to get more into the debate. Mm-hmm. Is that concerning to some of those Floridian voters that are very big progressives and very big Bernie Sanders crowd?
It's definitely going to be concerning to the far left, but I think what Biden is doing right now is banking on getting that vote because he thinks those people are going to turn out to vote against Donald Trump. He's trying to appeal to the people in the middle, just like Dave said, because those people, there are swing voters out there. It's hard to imagine in this polarized political climate that we live in, but they do exist. And he wants to get that suburban vote, the rural vote that he can get.
But is he getting it because Trump just turned off a lot of people on Tuesday night?
Is one debate going to really make up people's minds? I don't think so.
Well, now, hold on. Now, David, listen, I got a lot more clips I want to get into. I have a lot of my conservative listeners, and you know me, I'm a free market conservative, but I call it the way it is on this on our radio show, on our news publication, also on Florida Daily TV. People, I get a lot of emails from, and it was about 60-40 on my morning show, and you were on with me this past week, where even the Trump supporters are like, dude, he needed the chill. But we're going to get to that in a moment. I'm saving all the good clips. But a lot of the Trump supporters are like, well, people know who he is. Do we really have any undecided voters? David, if you don't believe we still have undecided voters, then why is the Trump and Biden crowd advertising in swing states? Think about that.
Well, no, exactly. They're spending millions of dollars in swing states. You have Trump going to Minnesota. He's spending a lot of time in Minnesota and these other states to try to get more votes. And if we thought that this was really, that people already knew what they were going to vote for or who they're going to vote for, I don't think so. I think there's still the suburban moms, right? We talk about this all the time. There are new ads out saying that, Biden is the one to protect suburban moms. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, this ad, but it's fascinating. It's been running on Fox News.
All right.
So there's obviously some votes out there.
Let's get to the Green New Deal comment of the debate this week.
Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
Now, wait a second. He talked about the Green New Deal. Then he says he doesn't support the Green New Deal. Here's a clip from Fox 8 that says that, wait a second, if you go to Biden's website, his website is all over the map, but he's supporting the Green New Deal. Here's the clip.
When asked if he supported the Green New Deal, former Vice President Biden says he supports the Biden plan.
Do you support?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
However, Biden's campaign website says, quote, Biden believes the Green New Deal is a crucial framework for meeting the climate challenge.
All right, let me stop right here. So everybody talks about it in a primary. It may work well in the Democratic primaries about the Green New Deal. Right now, it's not resonating with a lot of voters. If Biden sits back and says, hey, I don't support the Green New Deal, is that a make or break for the Bernie Sanders crowd in the state of Florida?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, I think that the Green New Deal was extremely ambitious, but there were so many parts of it that just really didn't resonate with voters. I mean, the whole thing about minimizing how much beef we consume, that the conservatives turned into this whole argument about getting rid of cows, that it meant something to some people. But I do not think that in Florida it's going to be a difference maker. I think actually Biden did the smart play by saying that I don't support that. I have my own ideas about how to address climate change. But I mean, really boil it down. Right now, people are more concerned about COVID and the economy.
The COVID and the economy. Go ahead, David. You want to jump in?
Okay, so I have a question. He says that it's going to pay for itself, the Green New Deal. Then why not support it? I mean, if this is a fantastic piece of legislation and vision that's going to pay for itself, why not embrace it? I don't think he really believes that it pays for itself.
David, let me go a little bit further. Here's one of the arguments I've had with those of the environmentalists, as a conservationist here, somebody who does a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing. They talk about less cars on the road and more trains. Have you noticed that? They talk about, hey, we need more like some high-speed rail. What do you think they're going to build all of this? If there's no existing concrete jungle out there, they've got to tear down the environment. They've got to go through the St. Johns River here. They've got to go through the environment and tear it down in order to build their trains of having less people on the road. Here is the one about law and order. Here's clip number 4.
I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Democrats, and in many cases, radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order.
Now, if you would have minus all the interruptions, I think the president could have knocked a lot out of the ballpark. Having said this, the whole thing about Antifa, law and order, Antifa's an idea. It's not really a group. I don't buy into that. Having said this, the law and order, again, this whole segment with Biden, he wouldn't say it. Is this going to hurt his campaign?
No, come on. I mean, there certainly is an argument there that when we see these acts of violence and looting in the cities and other cities that are not in Florida, let's be clear about that, it does put fear in the hearts of a certain category of voter. That category of voter is probably going to vote Trump anyway. And realistically, I mean, Trump is, as usual, lying. Biden's plan for the police includes more spending for police, which was deeply unpopular with some parts of the liberal base.
All right, here was the one on Antifa. Here's the clip, David.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
to do
specifically
that,
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
white
like
me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by, but I'll tell you.
That was Biden that said Proud Boys first. First off, who are these Proud Boys? I don't even follow these guys, David.
I don't know. Maybe they're married to Proud Mary. Here's the thing, is that President Trump just needed to be very forceful in his answer and condemn the white supremacists. And the problem is he made that weird statement about stand by, and what does that mean?
Stand down, stand by.
Yeah, right. Stand down and stand by.
Is that a Biden gaffe?
It's a Trump gaffe. He says these weird.
But hold on. Do for the problem with the debate, I don't put all. Listen, some areas. I mean, some of the conservative radio out there outside of my show, they all wanted to blame the moderator. I'm like, okay, wait, this ain't Candy Crowley in 2012. I think that's too easy to blame. I would have not blamed Chris Wallace. There's a couple questions. I'm like, well, did he really go after Biden on the condemning of Antifa and BLM? I didn't hear that. But having said that, it's too easy to blame Wallace. These guys interrupted each other and each other. Did the president not do? Did he not have a good comeback of downplaying the area that, hey, listen, I am against white supremacy? Some of those, even on the conservative Fox News, thought some of the conservative commentators didn't think that he went far enough.
So, Ed, here's my take on this: is I think that they're blaming the Chris Wallace because Trump had a bad debate. You don't see people on the right blaming Chris Wallace. It's everyone on the right because they're trying to make excuses why Trump had a bad debate, and I think that's the biggest concern right now.
Let me talk about
It's deflection. That's what they're doing.
I agree. So let me talk about this issue. I asked this on Facebook. I said, okay, fine. If you want to, I don't even know who Proud Boys is. I don't follow them. Okay. Having said this, if you want to look at more destruction, more loss of life that's been taking place over the summertime, whoever the Proud Boy guys may be, is there been more coming from the rioting on the left from BLM and Antifa versus the Proud Boys?
No, there certainly has been more from the right. I mean,
really?
Just a day after the debate, the FBI issued a warning about far-right violence in between the election and the inauguration. This is historic in the United States.
Mine was a past tense question, not a future tense.
But even the past tense. I mean, who was Timothy McVeigh? He was a far-right extremist.
Was he a was he a Proud Boy?
They didn't exist then, Ed. I mean, the Proud Boys are one of many far-right groups.
Wait a second.
They call themselves Western chauvinists.
I asked. I don't even know what a Western chauvinist is. Chauvinist.
Do you know what a chauvinist
Hold on, David. Hold on. What I asked was, over the summertime, who has caused more death, violence, and mayhem and rioting? Has it been this right-wing Proud Boys group, or has it been the BLM and Antifa?
I mean, you want to do one little tiny sliver of time. I honestly think that we're going to, if we had the actual numbers, we're going to see there was more violence from the right, and there was more violence.
I don't buy that. Go ahead, David.
But let's look at the history of this country, the Weathermen, and let's look at the left and what they did in the 60s and 70s. So yes, we are looking at one set of time because that's where we are now. And it was the summer where we had the protests, we had the riots, we had a black cop that was shot trying to defend a store. So absolutely, we're looking at this summer. I mean, we can.
But is it from the right or from the left, David?
It's absolutely from the left. I mean, the left is causing this, and and again, Trump steps on his own message when he stands in front of a church holding a Bible. He just stepped on the message that people tried to burn down a church.
Yeah, I found that curious why they were more concerned about Trump holding a Bible than about a historical church that almost got, or did in some cases get burned down. Here was the other clip here. This where Chris Wallace asked Joe Biden, hey, listen, if you were so concerned about the cities and the rioting, how come you didn't place a call to any of the mayors out there? Here's the clip.
Have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president.
Well, he doesn't hold public office, but he still gets brief on COVID. He still comments on a lot of stuff. Why he's always saying, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. I'm not faulting the guy. Okay, all I'm just saying is that the question should have been, you know what, if he would have said, I've had conversations with these guys, and you know what, and he would have scored a lot of points. I think with maybe someone decided.
But if he hasn't had conversations with those people, he shouldn't lie about it. He's not Donald Trump here, right?
But he said, no, he says, I'm not elected. I don't need to have conversations.
He certainly has condemned the violence. He has condemned the looting. There's no question about it. He does it again and again.
Maybe when the poll numbers started going south?
He's been doing it since the beginning.
Go ahead, David.
No, he hasn't doing it from the beginning, because when the first protests were, George Floyd, is that they thought this was a big movement that was happening in this country, and they were dismissing some of the looting because they didn't want to acknowledge it because this was about George Floyd. But once it started to be like, okay, this is bigger than George Floyd, we're seeing a lot of rioting and protesting that is turning violent, then he was backed into a corner and had to do it. So he was riding the protest wave at the beginning, and I think he was kind of back into a corner.
Right, but David, I will admit, it's not happening in every state. If it's only happening we got some going on with Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, but if it's not happening in every state, I don't see how this becomes I'm just saying, this doesn't, in Florida, how this has become a nationwide issue.
Right. I mean, and when the fact of the matter is that 93% of these protests have been entirely peaceful, the 7% is what everyone is focusing on. And I do find it very interesting that we're talking about these protests that are getting out of hand rather than the issues that sparked the protests now.
That 7%'s caused over $1 billion in damage.
Right, but let's talk to the black community about what they're thinking right now about police violence. I mean, I know that there are some black leaders that would like to see protesters that are being agitators, that are escalating the situation, stop doing it, because we're changing the conversation into something that, yes, it's important, but the real issue here is police violence and systemic racism.
So it's okay to break the law in order to protest against some police violence?
I'm not saying it's okay, but I do say that I understand how people can become so frustrated over time and not seeing change, and I don't agree with it. I don't condone it.
Well, maybe there should be change of people not breaking the law.
I mean, the frustration, people do.
I'm going to change the topic in a second, but go ahead, David.
No, I agree with that, but look at the destruction of property. These businesses were small businesses that were minority owned. And, it's turning less of a racial thing, more into an economic and fiscal thing where you're destroying our cities. And it only has to be 7% because the video tells the story, especially in ads for that campaign.
Hey, Washington Times, conservative publication, Fox and Friends came out and said, Washington Times editorial this past week says the president blew an opportunity to debate. You agree?
For sure.
I agree. Yeah, also, let's get to issue number 2. Amy Coney Barrett. All right. So the left now says, I'm going to start with you, Claire, because you are a lawyer as well as an editor. Mm-hmm. So the left says, we're not going to, let me play for you the clip. We're not going to give her the time of the day. Here's the clip. No, not that one. Here's this one.
No, because I believe, first, that the whole process has been illegitimate, and second, because she's already stated that she is for overturning the ACA, I will not meet with her.
I will not be meeting with her. I will take the opportunity to question her when she is under oath.
I have no intention of meeting with Judge Barrett because I simply refuse to treat this process as sham.
Okay, wait. Okay, so this is what I don't get. That's Senator Chuck Schumer and Blumenthal and Mazie Hirono. So this is my question. If it's such a sham, we don't want to give her the time of the day, then why even show up at the Judicial Committee meetings then? If it's such a sham, why? Because you think they're actually going to ask her any questions?
Oh, certainly they will, yes. Because it's their job to show up to those committee meetings. When I think about this issue right now, what we're talking about with the Supreme Court, what is going on is where we're seeing the Supreme Court represent an increasingly small number of Americans, where most Americans support Roe v. Wade. Most Americans support some reasonable gun control. Most Americans support the ACA. And so we have a justice that's going to be on there that doesn't support any of those things.
The justice is not elected by a nationwide body.
The court looks less and less like the American people in terms of its values. And that is a source of frustration.
Really? So what about...
Wouldn't you be frustrated if the court was skewed very left?
Well, wait a second. Let me ask you a question. What about when the majority of people put in the Republicans during the Clinton days and during the Obama days? I wasn't telling to unpack the courts and pack them up with a bunch of right-wingers. So I understand that argument. I've been hearing that from the left all week, that it's a small minority group of people out there. Well, listen, the small minority group of people currently now is the U.S. Senate, and they act like they should be belonging in the majority right now, David.
Okay, so how many times has Roe v. Wade come before the Supreme Court in the last 10 years? How many? I mean, we saw Obamacare and John Roberts, who sold out the right, and I'm using air quotes here because the right was mad at John Roberts, but we thought we had our guy. So we never know what's going to happen when someone, joins the Supreme Court. And listen, I mean, obviously.
But she's on record on these issues. This isn't like we're taking a wild stab in the dark.
No, I was going to say that she is obviously very conservative. But that doesn't mean she's not qualified. This is not about what she thinks or believes. Is she qualified? Advise and consent, because the pendulum's going to swing the other way. And the Republicans have to be careful here because the pendulum will swing the other way at some point. And they need to be consistent. And listen, both sides right now are so hypocritical when it comes to the Supreme Court and this whole process. But she's way qualified. And they're attacking her religion. Imagine if she were Muslim and people were attacking her religion.
Exactly.
But they would.
The media would be losing their minds, right? The media would be losing their minds attacking a Muslim who's going to go in the Supreme Court. Why isn't the media defending her?
Here's my question. Hold on, David.
I am seeing her being defended, so I don't know what
question. I don't think the Dems are going to try to attack her faith. All right. And besides, Biden's a Catholic.
Right.
Nancy Pelosi is a Catholic. I think they felt a little bit of sting in 2018 with the Brett Kavanaugh, and they felt that's probably one of the. I think the Republicans should have won those seats because they were red states anyway.
I think it started with Merrick Garland.
But could have, but the Republicans. Well, then the Republicans shouldn't have won the U.S. Senate then in 2018. Then, but I agree that there was a hypocrisy on both sides, like David just said. But the bottom line is, do you think there's a little bit maybe that hey, we don't want to get hit in the rear end, so we don't want to treat her like unfairly like we treated Kavanaugh back in 2018. So you think this is pretty much going to be an easy path for ACB?
No, definitely not. I mean, and it's not her fault. I don't think. I think it's just because that's where we are right now. We are so torn apart as a nation along political lines, and both sides are just it's obscene what we're seeing from our representatives.
So we should wait till Biden. If Biden wins, he should be.
I certainly think that the liberals of the country would prefer that, but these confirmation things take a while. They take days and days and days. What the average is like 40 days or something.
I will. Well, in some cases, but I will agree with the president. When you elected a guy, whether you like him or not, he's not there for 3.5 years. He's there for 4 years, David.
Yeah, and I want to see. I wish I could take a time machine into the future, and if this ever happens again, but it's the opposite. Where you have Democrats that control the Senate, you have a Democrat president leading up to an election, right? If the talking points would be completely opposite and reverse, that's why I get frustrated with Congress and with the president, is that they change the rules and they change their logic, and we have no idea what's going to happen in the future. But they need to be careful because she is a woman, she's a woman of faith, and if they say the wrong things, it could turn off a lot of people in this country if they go at her the wrong way.
Okay. Do you think she's going to get a vote before Election Day, Claire?
No.
Okay. What do you say, David?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. I think she's going to get it before Election Day. So anyway, all right. David Williams is the president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance out of Washington, D.C. Claire Goforth, the political reporter for The Daily Dot, thedailydot.com. This has been another, I hope it's exciting, another exciting edition of Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com.